sells real estate and other businesses distributed around the world prior to becoming president. Would you have thought it appropriate to sell?
To discuss with him Russia's alleged meddling in the U.S. election, but I'm wondering how can you be so certain of that, given that the first...
My meeting yesterday with my fellow leaders of the Trans-Pacific Partnership was a chance to reaffirm
real estate and other businesses distributed around the world prior to becoming president. Would you have thought it appropriate to sell?
To discuss with him Russia's alleged meddling in the U.S. election, but I'm wondering how can you be so certain of that, given that the first...
My meeting yesterday with my fellow leaders of the Trans-Pacific Partnership was a chance to reaffirm our commitment to the TPP with its high standards, strong protections for workers, the environment, intellectual property, and human rights. Our partners made very clear during the meeting that they want to move forward with TPP. Preferably, they'd like to move forward with the United States. A number of countries are already starting to ratify TPP. At the same time, we're already hearing calls for a less ambitious trade agreement in the region with lower standards, lower protections for workers, lower protections for the environment. That kind of agreement would obviously exclude U.S. Workers and businesses and access to those markets. So for all those reasons, I believe that TPP is a plus for America's economy, America's workers, American jobs. I think not moving forward would undermine our position across the region, our ability to shape the rules of global trade in a way that reflects our interests and our values.
Leaders this week that President-elect Trump is unlikely to govern.
There are other very important countries, like China, where we can't, if it weren't for China's cooperation, we couldn't have gotten the Paris Agreement done. But China's not the one who was going around organizing 200 nations to sign on to a Paris Agreement, or putting together the paper and the policy outlines and the conceptual framework. Russia is a very significant military power, but they're not worrying right now about how to rebuild after a hurricane in Haiti. We are.
This year's campaign will be the new normal going forward in future U.S.
To the policy decisions of the foreign leaders he meets, and in the foreign...
And Assad, as a consequence, has been emboldened. Look, this is a man who has decided that destroying his country, turning it to rubble, and seeing its population scattered or killed was worth it for him to cling to power, when he had the option to peacefully engage in a transition that could have kept the country intact. That's his mentality. That's not a mentality we support. That's a mentality that the Russians and the Iranians have been willing to support.
Syria and the conflict there. Can you talk a little about how you see that unfolding?
Reflecting more on the powers of and the influence of the presidency on the world.
With respect to President Putin, I didn't have a meeting. We talked briefly while we were in between sessions, and the conversation that I had with him was consistent with the conversations I've had with him over the previous several months, indicating to him that we are still deeply concerned about the bloodshed and chaos that's being sown by constant bombing attacks by Assad and the Russian military against populations in Aleppo, and the need for us to arrive first at some sort of humanitarian ceasefire and begin moving towards a political transition of some sort.